Hello everybody, this is Marcus Toole and I am in front of one of my two Acres Home pear trees. This is the one that's actually bearing this year. Acres Home is a very good early season southern pear. It is a soft variety. Let me adjust the camera just a bit. There we go. It's a soft variety, meaning that it will soften up. This is one that will semi-soften on the tree, but like any European type pear, this one will soften better if you pick them while they're still crunchy and bring them inside and let them finish ripening in an air-conditioned room. So they just ripen way better if they do so at about 70 degrees and not attached to a tree. The way I do it is I just stick them in a bucket. This is any pear that I'm going to soften up. I just stick them in a bucket and put a piece of paper over the top of the bucket. And that helps keep methane in the bucket and it softens up the pears. This particular tree is pretty young. It's the only one that's produced any pears this year. The other tree didn't bloom very much this year at all. And the reason it didn't is because it overcropped last year. And I will say that part of my evaluation of Acres Home is the fact that it tends to overcrop. And when it does overcrop, it's kind of an every other year producer. It shares that quality in common with another very similar southern pear called Southern Bartlett. And I would say that the pears on both trees look a lot alike. So much alike, it's tempting for me to wonder if there's actually the same variety. I don't think they are. I do think Acres Home is a slightly better tasting pear than Southern Bartlett. They're also slightly later season, and on average they're bigger pears. Although this year the pears on this particular tree are not exceptionally large. While it is a soft pear, what I'll say for both of them is I prefer to eat both of them while they're still crunchy as opposed to when they are soft ripe. And that's just a characteristic of me. There are some pears I prefer soft ripe, but most pears, even including the soft pears, I tend to prefer somewhat on the crunchy side. But let's, without any other to do, let's go ahead and pick a pear. This tree, the pears are kind of too high up into the tree for me to do a really good test as to whether they're ready to pick or not. But I can assure you that they are ready to pick. I think all the pears on the tree are ready to pick. But a way to tell would be to lift up on the pear and to see, all I have to do is touch the pears and they fall out of the tree. So for sure, all I had to do was just touch the pears with the picker and they fell out of the tree on their own accord, which tells you that they're very, very ready to go. And what I'll say for Acres Home is that it's one of the sweetest and juiciest pears I know of. It's the only one that's juicier is Southern Bartlett, but I have not found Southern Bartlett to be as sweet. And in both cases, when they're soft ripe, I don't care for the texture because they turn to water. I mean, in the case of Acres Home, it's very sweet. It's a delicious water, but it's still water, and I prefer a little bit of substance to a pear when I eat it. Another thing they have in common is that while the skin is kind of rough to the feel, it is very thin-skinned pear. So, you know, as far as a pear to eat while the skin's still on it, this is one of the best for that purpose. which I really like because you can just pick the pear off the tree and eat it right then and there, especially with a pear that's good as a crunchy pear, plus it has skin that's not objectionable to eat. So let's try this pear. This pear is actually semi-softened. Now, if it is softened off the tree, the texture would be different and the texture would be better than with it softening on the tree. But it's still, it's delicious, it's sweet. The flavor is somewhat spicy, and it has the flavor of what we call a southern pear. And what I mean by a southern pear is that most of the pears in the deep south are hybrids between the wild type of the Chinese sand pear and a European pear. And they just have a distinctive flavor that is, I don't know how to explain it. It's just, there's a bit of a spiciness to it, but not in the same sense that, say, a Tennessee pear is spicy, or even in the same sense that a Southern King is spicy. It's just, it has a, there is a sweet, almost honey-like, there's just nothing like it. I don't know how to describe it, but it is a very, it's a very nice pear flavor. And distinct. It won't remind you of any pears in the grocery store, that's for sure. Flesh is white. It would brown some if you cut it up and leave it out. I don't think I've ever tried canning this variety. To can it successfully, you would have to harvest them while they're very firm still, way less ripe than this. Generally, for canning, your best pears are those that don't brown terribly bad and that are at least semi-firm when they're ripe. Or you pick for the soft types, you need to pick them quite early in the ripening process. You don't need the pear to be super sweet if you're going to can it. What's more important is that it's firm. Well, that's a good pear. I would have liked it better had it been crunchier, I'll be honest with you, but it's excellent. And as far as a very early season pear, I like it better than the Southern Bartlett. It's very early blooming, so it blooms with Southern Bartlett. It blooms with it would bloom with a Hood or a Carnes. It blooms with Baldwin. It has a little tiny bit of overlap with the mid-season bloomers such as Southern King or LeConte or Golden Boy, and maybe even a little bit with Tennessee, although I think Tennessee is slightly later blooming. It starts a little later than the ones I just mentioned, so it may not overlap with it. Certainly would not overlap at all with something that's really late blooming like a Tennessee or a Kiefer or an Orient. So anyhow, excellent pear. Acres Home originated in the Houston, South Carolina area in a community known as Acres Home, hence the name. And they're readily available at various online nurseries. I doubt you'll find it at a local garden center, and even if you did find it at a local garden center, I wouldn't put a lot of faith in it being properly labeled. but you'll find it at a number of online nurseries, and this is a good pear. And of course, I plan to make scion wood available for it in the winter. Talk to you later. God bless, and happy growing.